Over the last little while, we have seen a growing movement and trend in Alberta surrounding their exit from Canada and a growing support for Alberta independence. But as that has caught fire and become more of a mainstream trend among Western Canada, we've seen something else happen. We've seen other provinces start to get on the same mindset, first with Saskatchewan, and now even with British Columbia. And so it begs the question, what if Alberta wasn't alone anymore? What if the conversation about independence, one that's quietly been growing for years, suddenly expanded beyond provincial borders? Imagine this: Alberta, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia begin talking, not about separation individually, but leaving Canada together and forming one new Western country. Today, we're not talking about rage, we're not talking about rebellion. We're talking about the possibility, leverage, and what the West could look like if it finally spoke with one voice. Let's walk through
In
it.
the West, a new idea took root. British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan chose their own path, uniting mountains, prairie, and coast under a single banner. A Western Dominion built on energy, farmland, and resilience.
For years, Alberta has carried the conversation around independence almost alone. Not because Albertans hate Canada, but because many feel structurally ignored. Energy policies written by people who don't produce energy, equalization formulas that never seem to change, and federal decisions that benefit central Canada while the West pays the bill. Alberta didn't wake up one day wanting out. It got there by asking for reform and being told repeatedly to accept the status quo. That's important because Alberta didn't start a movement out of anger. It started one out of frustration and self-preservation. And now, others are noticing. As we all know, Saskatchewan has always been Alberta's quiet, younger twin. Same issues, same economic backbone, energy, agriculture, resources. Same frustration with Ottawa's one-size-fits-all policies. Saskatchewan doesn't need radical change. It needs fair representation and local control. If Alberta ever made a serious move, Saskatchewan would be the first province people would expect to listen, because culturally, economically, the alignment is already there. Together, Alberta and Saskatchewan form energy security, food security, massive land and resources, and a shared Western identity. That's not a fringe idea. That's a foundation. Now, here's the interesting part. Because obviously, the left in Canada and Ottawa will always call Alberta and Saskatchewan a radical fringe minority group of separatists. But in the last little while, British Columbia has caught on board. And we know that British Columbia isn't politically uniform, but it doesn't need to be. Because BC has major ports, Pacific trade access, tech, tourism, forestry, and mining, and one of the most strategic coastlines in North America. And increasingly, the same affordability crisis, the same federal bottlenecks, and the same feeling that Ottawa governs from a distance. Western separation doesn't require BC to think like Alberta. It requires BC to ask one question. Would more local control serve British Columbians better than distant federal oversight? If BC joins the conversation, even partially, the entire equation changes. So without emotions being brought into this, let's think clearly and practically. What would a united Western country look like? Well, let's take the three and put them together: BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. A new Western nation would instantly have energy independence, food production, deep water ports, trade access to Asia-Pacific markets, one of the strongest resource bases on Earth. Politically, it could be decentralized, province-first governance, strong property rights, local control over resources, a constitution written after listening to the people. This wouldn't be about replacing Ottawa with a new Ottawa. It would be about designing a country that reflects the West, instead of forcing the West to fit a system built for someone else. Now, let's be clear about one thing, and this is the part that the majority of critics miss. This conversation is not anti-Canada. It's pro-choice. When regions have options, governments listen. Whether the end result is reform, autonomy, or something entirely new, the discussion itself matters. No democracy should fear a conversation. No federation should rely on silence to survive. If unity is strong, it will withstand debate. If it isn't, that's worth examining. So let's actually examine that. Here's a truth we don't say out loud often enough. Real unity is not fragile. If a country is genuinely united by shared values, fair systems, and mutual benefit, then open debate doesn't threaten it. It strengthens it. Strong nations don't silence hard questions. They answer them. When people say talking about separation is dangerous, what they're really saying is that the discussion itself is a risk. And that should concern everyone, regardless of where they stand. Because if unity collapses, the moment people start asking why things are the way they are, then maybe that unity was already under strain. Debate is a stress test. It reveals whether a system adapts or just demands compliance. If Canada's current structure truly works for everyone, then conversations about autonomy, decentralization, or even independence shouldn't scare anyone. They should end with people saying, "We talked it through, and staying together still makes sense." But if those conversations keep exposing the same unresolved issues, representation, regional power imbalance, economic extraction without consent, then ignoring them doesn't preserve unity. It postpones a reckoning. History shows us this clearly. Countries don't fracture because people talk too much. They fracture because people are told not to talk, until frustration hardens into resentment. So this isn't about pushing anyone out. This is about asking, is unity voluntary or enforced by inertia? Is participation mutual or conditional? Are regions partners or dependencies? If unity is real, it will survive these questions. If it isn't, then examining why isn't radical. It's responsible. So, here's the real question. What if the West stopped asking for permission and started asking what kind of future it wants? Not tomorrow, not emotionally, but thoughtfully, openly, and honestly. That conversation is already starting, and once it starts, it doesn't go away. If you found this worth thinking about, drop your thoughts below. Not slogans, ideas. Let's actually have this conversation out loud.